Stalker at church. This didn't happen to me, but my friend's mom, when my friend was like 8 or 9. So, at my friend's church, there are usually a lot of people. Many middle-class Americans, but there are homeless people there too who like to worship and whatever. There's this old homeless guy who goes there. He sits about 3 rows behind my friend and her mom and her dad at church. So one day while they are in church, my friend is looking around the church because she is bored, and she turns around to see this guy staring at her mom. He then looks at her and gives her the creepiest fucking smile ever. My friend gets scared and turns back around, but can't help but turn around over and over again, and this guy is still staring at her mom and then at her. Church ends, and my friend says, "We need to go home now." And her mom and dad are like, "Why?" And so when they get in the car, she tells them about the creepy guy staring at them. Her parents think nothing of it, and that she is making stuff up. So the next Sunday, they go back to church, just her mom and my friend this time, and walk into the same row they sit every day. On the pew, there is this piece of paper, and my friend's mom picks it up and is like, "Someone probably left this here. I'll give it to the pastor." And she opens it to see what it is and if it has a name on it. She reads it to herself and gets so fucking pale and cold and drops the piece of paper down. My friend picks it up and reads it, and it says, "Hello, Christina," my friend's mom's name. "You probably don't remember me, but I remember you." And she turns to the homeless man who is just staring and smiling. My friend and her mom start freaking out, and my friend points to the homeless man, and her mom looks at him, and he just makes this creepy wave. How the fuck did this guy know her name? They never talked. Anyways, so my friend and her mom leave right away and go home and don't go back to the church for like 3 weeks and go to a different church instead. While they are going to this other church, they start seeing this homeless man walking around their neighborhood. They live in a remote part of town, just with houses and some farms, no stores or anything, so it doesn't make sense that this guy was out there, walking on their street. My friend's mom starts getting really worried, and so she tells my friend she can't go outside without her or anything, but my friend is 8 and doesn't listen, so she goes and rides her bike around the neighborhood. While riding her bike, she sees the homeless guy just walking around, and he spots her and makes a fucking beeline right towards her. She turns her bike around and starts running for her life. He's screaming, "I want to speak with your mom. Let me talk to Christina." And she's just riding for her life. She makes it to her house before him, runs inside, and her mom is like, "Where the fuck were you?" And my friend is saying, "He's coming," over and over again. Her mom looks out the window, sees the guy coming up their walkway, and she locks the door and calls the cops. The cops come, and he tries to get away through some woods, but they arrest him, and turns out he sexually assaulted 3 women from the same church that my friend and her mom go to. He got arrested, and I'm pretty sure he's still in jail now, but it's still really creepy. Prayed on at church. Good evening all. I have an unhealthy addiction to the subreddit, and all accounts real and creepy. I cannot stop reading these once I start. Seriously. Anywho, I thought I would share one of my own, although it doesn't hold a candle to many of the more intense posts. I still think it fits here. My mother is an intensely devout Catholic, and has been since my very early childhood. She has always been extremely active as well, participating in various forms of worship organized by mainstream and not so mainstream Catholic sects. Most of my bizarre memories involve my mother and these activities, and these people. As a child, I was told the Virgin Mary presented herself to me in a vision. Another time, I was told that I was an angel of the devil in front of a church full of my peers. Needless to say, I am no longer religious. However, as a young child, I did not have a choice in the matter, and my mother brought me along to most of her church activities. This incident occurred when I was in kindergarten, so I was about 5 or 6. My mother formed part of the church choir and had weekly practice on a weekday at around 6 p.m. or so. Normally, there was 1 or 2 other kids my age, and we just play outside the practice room in the church parking lot. On this particular day, no other kids had been brought, which happened occasionally. But as a little kid, the only playmate I needed was my imagination. The rehearsal had been going on for a while, and I was playing right outside the door, when a slightly run-down-looking pickup truck pulled into the parking lot and strangely parked right in the middle with the driver's door towards me. The man inside the truck opened his door and without getting out began speaking to me. I think he was about 30 to 50, hard to tell at that age. All adults are of an age to a kid. Also, it's been 20 years and the details are a little fuzzy. Well, he started talking to me, but since he had stopped in the middle of the parking lot, I didn't understand what he was saying. He was probably some 15 feet away from the sidewalk. I just assumed he probably wanted to ask for another adult, so I walked close enough to hear him. "Hey, are you bored?" he asked, smiling. I automatically got a little wary at that. I'd been taught stranger danger, so I hung back. But I actually was bored at the point, so I told him yes. "Want to go home with me and play some games? Your dad told me to come pick you up. Come on." He was still smiling and sitting back in the driver's seat. He looked relaxed and friendly enough to me, and I really wanted to go back to my house already, so his offer actually sounded good. I lived pretty close, so I thought maybe my dad had actually sent this guy. But something about him was making me nervous, but I was considering it. I walked a little closer to the truck, paused and asked, "Whose house?" "Mine." I ran. I knew he was lying. My parents would never let me go to someone else's house. It was something I had been scolded for before. I turned and ran into the practice room and just clutched my mother until it was time to go. To this day, it makes my stomach turn to imagine what would have happened if things had played out differently. Had I gotten into that truck, I would most likely disappeared and never been found. The guilt would have destroyed my mother, and likely the lives of my older brother and father, and my little brother may have never even been born. I'm so thankful for that alarm that went off in my head and told me to run. Playing Barbies in church. I am a 47-year-old female. When I was about 11 years old, we lived in Oakville, Texas. My daddy was the preacher of the little Baptist church right off I-37, and we lived in the parsonage just back behind the church. My dad was also a mechanic in the next town over, 3 Rivers, and was gone during the day, Monday to Friday. I have an awesome dad, by the way, super funny and very protective. He is a kind and generous man too. I had an older sister who ignored me most of the time and did not want to play. And the town was very small with very few kids to play with, so I ended up playing Barbies or such alone. I felt very safe playing in and all around the church grounds. I usually ended up playing inside the church during the hottest part of the days in the summer because there was no air conditioning in our house. The church was usually locked, so I would get the key from the kitchen and go unlock the door and return the key later. One Monday midday, I went into the church and something seemed off. I played there often, so I knew the smells and where things were, etc. I noticed that the church hallway smelled different, kind of musty like. I remember walking slowly all around the church with a kind of weird feeling of being watched. I played in the auditorium mostly and set up my whole Barbie, Charlie's Angels, Donny Osmond world all over the pews. I usually cleaned up my messes every day and put all my toys in a satchel I carried back and forth home. That day, I set up as usual and kept hearing the building creak and the air conditioning go off and on, etc., but also kept feeling kind of weird and uncomfortable, and I would stand up and peer over the back pew and check out the room. All summer long, I went into the church playing and kept noticing things were different and not in the right place or out of place. We did not have people going in or out of the church during the week. This is a small country church, and custodial work was done by the preacher and his family, which was us. My job was to vacuum and empty garbage cans, so I started noticing weird stuff in the garbage. An old t-shirt, magazines, not good ones for a church environment, let alone an 11-year-old kid, if you get my drift. And the weirdest part, the words and drawings on paper. The drawings were strange, and the words and poetry were dark and sad. Everyday little things were off, but not enough to make me go tell my mom or even mention it to my dad in the evenings when he got home. One Saturday, Daddy was home and told me to go over and get some paperwork out of his office. The pastor's study is just off the auditorium, so I walked in and stood by the back pew. There are windows in the auditorium there, and I could see very well even with the lights off, and I could tell that there was a hazy smoke settling all around the front area around the podium. I had not been around cigarette smoke much in my life up to that point, but I remember realizing that the smell I had been smelling all summer was stale smoke. I turned to go into the study and realized the door was opened. It's always locked and closed, and a feeling of dread came over me. I ran as fast as I could out the back of the church and into the house. Daddy was sitting drinking coffee and looking at me. I told him everything in one big lump and started crying. Daddy immediately got up and took a shotgun over to the church and started checking things out. A homeless guy was living in a utility closet in the church all summer long and had been there the whole time I had been playing there alone every day. He had come in a window in a Sunday school room. Daddy told me later the whole story, that the guy was in and out of jail for petty thievery and breaking and entering, but really was just a 27-year-old who needed a home and family and didn't have either. So my dad helped him get a job and a place to stay on a local ranch, and he ended up okay and started coming to church sometime that year. My daddy had made friends with him, and the guy ended up apologizing to me personally for scaring the shit out of me. Daddy told him to, I am sure. I remember his face and the pain in his eyes when he apologized to me in person, and me really hoping he was gonna be okay. I mentioned it to my daddy when I was older, asking about him, and Daddy says that he eventually got married and has a baby girl. Good lessons learned that summer. Listen to your gut feeling when things feel off and wrong, and also help out when you can. My daddy helped out the creeper, and his life was changed. Good stuff to live by.